Mandarin, Cantonese, dynasties, and a Great Wall.
请去城
We're the travel agents coming to you with tips, tricks, interviews, and voyages by cruise. The travel agents bringing you the latest travel news.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Will.
Welcome to this episode of the Travel Agents on China.
Yeah.
This is an extra special episode for me because I lived in China for
Yes,
a
you
year
did.
with my brother. He was there for 2 years. We did so much. I have so much to talk about. And let me just start by saying, if you came to this episode wanting like information on politics and trade war and things like that, that's not what we're going to be doing today.
We never will be.
No, but if you came here being like, what does it look like to pack up your life in the Western world and move to China for a year?
Yeah.
And what kind of crazy stuff are you going to get into and learn and see? This is definitely an episode for you.
Totally
I
different.
have so many stories and so many very different, unique, and fun things to share. Just a quick couple background things about China. Will, can you hit us with all of the details on China?
Yeah, so it does have a population of 1.4 billion. It's a very populous country. It's the fourth in size for landmass. It's followed by Russia, United States, and Canada. There's 23 provinces, so instead of states like we have in the United States,
Right.
they have provinces.
Yeah.
And there's actually 302 dialects in China.
Yeah, that's dialects for language. Mandarin being the most spoken.
Yeah.
And then lastly would be the ethnic groups. There are 56 ethnic groups, but the Han ethnic, I don't think it's an ethnic group. It's just Han Chinese. They make up
Okay.
92%. So probably chances are, if you meet a Chinese person, there's a 92% chance that they're Han
Wow.
Chinese. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Today's going to be really special because we have two guests in our studio here in Akron, Ohio, the Travel Agent Studio. First, let me introduce my brother, Nicholas.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Nick, do you remember the years that you taught in China?
Yes, I was there from August 2010 to June 2012.
Yeah. And what were you
Wow.
doing? What were you teaching? And where were you in China?
Oh, I was teaching English, spoken English class at a university in Zhengzhou in Henan, China.
Yeah.
Which is, it's like living in the Columbus, Ohio of China.
Okay, right on. And so on the map, explain where Henan and Zhengzhou is versus other big cities.
Sure. Over in the center, in the east, it was about a 5-hour train ride. If you go north, you hit Beijing. And if you go east, you would get to Shanghai, about 7 hours by train.
Very good, very good. And then I was there. I joined you for your second year. I was an assistant marketing teacher while you taught English, and we had a blast together, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah, it was actually
you were a great
cool.
teacher.
Thanks. You were a great teacher. You came to my first class and were
Yeah,
encouraging.
what a bully move to do, huh? Been on your first class
It's
ever.
like coming to someone's first day of work. Who would do that, right?
You were great then.
Yeah, yeah. And my sister-in-law is here because, Nick, while you were there, I was going to say you married a girl, but you married her here in America. But you found your wife in China. What was that like?
Yeah, I was there was a very pretty English teacher who taught one room over,
Uh-huh.
and she did a lot of interpreting for us.
Yeah.
And we met, started dating.
And would you pretend to like not know stuff so you could have a reason to go ask her questions or?
I remember you had a problem with your finger. And you needed
Yes.
somebody to take you to the hospital. And,
I had like gangrene on my finger from something, and it was like bright blue.
Oh,
and
no.
it was like bubbling. It was so
wow.
painful. Some sort of infection. So, anyways, go ahead.
yeah, and she took you to the hospital, and I remember being happy that she was the one to take you.
Yeah, yeah.
I went too.
Just let's put a pin in that. We have to tell that story about going to the hospital. So I want to introduce my sister-in-law, Meng Wan. Hi, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So
Yeah, thanks for coming.
right at the beginning of the podcast, you said a Chinese line. Do you want to tell the audience what you said in both Chinese and English?
Sure, I said 请去城, and that means please go to the Great Wall.
Yeah. So if you're in Beijing and you get in a taxi and you want the taxi driver to take you to the Great Wall of China, you would literally say that. Qing chu chang cheng. Go ahead, Mengwan, say it again.
请去长城.
Which is true because that is Mandarin is a tonal language. There's 4 main tones and a neutral tone. And so depending on your inflection, you change what you mean. So it's very interesting. And we're not going to get too much into Mandarin this episode, but what we are going to get into are things like Chinese culture, living in China. We'll talk a bit about Mandarin. We're going to talk about like travel within China, how affordable it is, differences of culture, the differences between Nick and our Chinese students versus what it's like teaching American students, and just other unique things. So, Will, can we get into our defining words?
Here's 3 words to help you. Here's our defining words.
So there's got to be so many different ways you can define China, and I'm really excited to hear what you guys have to say about how you would define this huge country.
Yeah, so I think the first defining word it's for the economy, and that word is developing.
Okay, and what do you mean by that?
We throw around terms like first world, second world,
Yeah.
third world countries. And how do you really define China except that it's developing? And anywhere we went in China, it seemed like there were more cranes in the air than restaurants. There's always something being built and constructed. Mengwan, you've probably found like in your whole life, it's just been like constant construction and building and developing.
Yeah, before I was 4, we lived in this rural area. I had really great memories of that area, but last time when I went back, it was all skyscrapers and nothing from my childhood left.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We're seeing technological advances. People have iPhones. Most families probably have 1 or 2 televisions inside. The subways are absolutely beautiful. Nick, were there anything in particular you remember just about things like, wow, this is really nice, or this is better than America, or this technology?
Yeah.
Maybe you could touch on, I don't think it's called QQ. What's the app called where you can just do like everything?
Yeah, they have a WeChat or Weixin, I think, in Chinese. And that's, in some ways, it was like a messenger, but you could post your pictures and everything, and you put your money on it and pay for it. And
Yeah.
when we went in 2018, I tried to buy a bowl of noodles with cash, and they told me I had to use the WeChat app.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. You can book a reservation at a restaurant through the app, and then once you get to the restaurant, you would all order from the app.
Mm-hmm.
And it remembers based on the restaurant you're at, what you want and all that. I think we're seeing that technology come to America, but definitely a developing country for sure.
So how was the culture in terms of kindness? Were they different in terms of that, or were they meaner, or how was it?
Yeah. The culture is different, and I won't do it justice on this episode because I never really learned the culture. I found I usually offended people. But my second word is non-confrontational, or maybe just polite.
Okay.
And by that, I think I get it, but I don't necessarily understand it. Like the concept of needing to ask someone 3 times if they would like some food, right? Like this is strange for me. If someone asks me, "Oh, did you want dinner?" And if I want it, I'll just say yes. But in Chinese culture, it's different in that aspect. And that would be quite rude if you were just to say yes the first time. You would want to say, like, Mengwan, any idea of like how you'd go about that?
Like when people ask me if I want to have something to eat.
Yeah, and I've heard examples of, let's say you don't drink alcohol and you go into someone's home and they might offer you alcohol, for example, but you have to be really upfront. No, how would you even go about saying that? Because they're probably going to keep asking you, right, to be polite.
Yeah.
And then after
yeah.
3 times, you should say yes.
Yeah, I think I think it comes from how Chinese people value being humble. It's like in the culture. So when people ask you to have something, they really are trying to offer you. They want to be hospitable. And if it's a Chinese person who are being offered, they would tend to say, no, thank you, no, thank you, no, thank you. So it kind of makes, even if you really don't want it, they thought you want it. So
Right.
they would keep asking and then expecting you to accept it.
Yeah. That's really good.
So you're supposed to decline the offer? Is that what you're supposed to do? Or is it okay to accept the offer?
And culturally, you better accept the offer.
Okay.
But after you should say no a couple times, correct? If they offer you, here,
Okay.
let me buy you dinner.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, thank you.
No, here, let me buy you dinner.
No, thank you. No,
Here, no, let me buy you dinner.
no.
Oh, here, let me buy you dinner.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go. That was a good back and forth there. So I want to talk about our next word, which will be in a lot of our topics. And that is, did you have something to say, Nick?
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, do you remember how many times people would try to offer you a cigarette and you try to say, no, thank you? And then eventually you just end up smoking it. to be polite?
Oh, no, really?
Yeah, you end up with lung cancer because
Yeah.
you're being polite.
You turn it down so many times and then eventually you just smoke it.
You just got to take it. Remember that happened to our dad when he came to visit? Yeah, exactly. Our last defining word is inexpensive. So, Nick, I want to throw this off to you. What do you remember about prices and things like that all over China for any aspect of life?
I just my immediate memory is day one getting to the school. We had some meeting in the morning and then they took us out for a bicycle ride. We had to rent the bicycles
Okay.
and it cost 1 yuan or 1 kwai for a few hours, which is equal to about 17 cents at the
Right,
time
right.
to rent a bicycle. And I just remember thinking, that's nothing.
Yeah.
That's a really cool.
Cheap.
And
Yeah.
generally, would you say a bowl of rice is around 1 kwai, 1 yuan? No, has it gone up quite a bit?
It has gone up a lot.
Okay. Yeah. It was about 10 years ago that we were there. Do you have an idea what it is today?
I would say it's probably 5 kwai now.
Okay. So a little less than $1 US.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's helpful because you're going to be eating a lot of rice while you're in China. That's for sure.
Yeah. Can I point out something? I think regarding prices, it has gone up a lot.
Mhm.
And it's relatively not as affordable as before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
It's good to know, particularly in like big cities, right?
Big
Like
cities.
Shanghai and Beijing and Shenzhen and Guangzhou. It's going to be quite expensive there.
Yeah, I remember visiting a burger store in Suzhou that's about 1 hour from Shanghai. And at the end, I think we paid probably as much as how much we would pay in a US restaurant. So that's a lot comparing to
Absolutely.
But I think if you eat Chinese food, you'll pay much
Yes.
less than you
Okay.
would here.
And also just traveling around China was very affordable as well. And we'll get into that here, into our highs and lows. So I say let's get into our highs and lows.
Sometimes things are good, sometimes they're bad too. It's highs, lows coming to you.
So you're a foreigner in a foreign land. No one looks like you. You're a white guy. It's something you're not used to. Do they treat you differently in China?
Yeah. So I was in Meng Wan's hometown, which is which is in the Henan province.
Okay.
And there are not as many foreigners there as there would be in a big city, say Beijing
Sure,
or Hong
sure.
Kong or Shanghai or Xi'an or something like that.
Okay.
And particularly Nick and I, the school we taught at, it was about an hour and a half away from the biggest city called Zhengzhou. We were at a smaller city called, what was it called?
Xinjiang.
Thank you, Nick. Man, I should have remembered that. But there, even more so, when you got off campus into the local town, you will see less foreigners, maybe no foreigners at all in a night. So for some people, particularly I would go for jogs and I would go out to maybe like the farmlands way outside of campus. And as I was jogging, for someone, maybe a farmer who, I'm going to go on a limb here and say, maybe perchance they've never seen a foreigner in real life, to see me was extremely shocking. And so therefore, I often felt like a celebrity. People were getting out cell phones, taking pictures of me, and I love attention. And I was in a band in high school and a band in college. And the big reason I did it was to be on stage so people would, love seeing me up there. So anyways, I really liked being treated somewhat like a celebrity, and I was all about people taking my picture and things like that. Did you notice, Nick, being treated differently or people saying things to you or asking questions when they saw you around campus?
Yes, absolutely. There was a lot of people wanted to just like me. Maybe it was the first time they ever met somebody who wasn't Chinese, or something.
Right.
And so you end up taking pictures with a kid or something like that. And
Right.
it's actually pretty neat because it give you a lot of experiences just by doing that. I remember my first year in China, we went to this big kung fu festival, and they needed people to hold flags that looked like they could be from that country. So
Okay.
I ended up carrying the flag of France in this big ceremony and waving it proudly as though I was this Frenchman.
Yeah.
And I was just
Have you ever been to France?
No, I've never been to France. I don't care to go. I'm sure it's lovely.
Yeah.
But and I remember there was a young, very beautiful Chinese girl who walked next to me holding a sign that said France, and she asked me very carefully, "Can you speak English?" She asked me that. I said, "Very well."
Yeah. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Wow,
Happy
this,
to.
this French guy is really bilingual. That's great. Yeah, yeah. We saw a few things like that, like Culture Week at our school.
Mm-hmm.
We were asked to come up and do a dance and
Do like
present.
a Latin
and-
American salsa dance
so
or something.
if you are someone, an American who doesn't look Chinese, and you would like to be noticed more, I would say go to a rural school in China and you will be noticed and people will gladly talk to you and be excited to learn about you. It's definitely a bit of an ego boost.
Sure, I bet. And where were you guys' school at? Was it in Zhengzhou?
About an hour and a half outside of Zhengzhou in a city
Zhengzhou.
called, shoot, I already forgot again.
Xinjiang,
Shenzhen.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
right by the airport.
Okay. Okay.
Nice. Let's hit him with our second high. So the other really nice thing about China is you just feel very safe. In a year of living there, I went out on my own quite a bit, and I never felt in danger. I don't
Okay.
know. Mengwan, have you felt in danger while living in China?
No, I think it's generally very safe. There might be instances of like somebody might pick your pocket or something
Sure.
but nobody will threaten your life or
Right. You see
injure you.
females walking alone at night, really no problem.
I would actually be a little bit more careful if it's late at night. And
Mhm.
I mean, it's like probably everywhere in the world.
Sure.
Just be careful at night.
Yeah.
Sure. How are women in general treated in China? Are they revered or? Yeah.
I think it depends on areas. Like in my area, in my family, girls are treated really well and they love having little girls, baby girls. But I know there are areas in China, probably more in the very rural area, they tend to like to have baby boys.
Okay.
Because they can carry on the family names and the family roots. So sometimes the baby girls might not be treated very well. They might even sometimes be abandoned, unfortunately.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
happening less and less, though.
Good. That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I believe the one-child policy has been done away with. Does that sound correct?
Yeah. Right now, the policy is you can have 2 children.
Okay. That's great.
But a lot of people just stick with 1.
Yeah. So my last high is traveling around China being very affordable. So one pretty cool thing was just like Nick and I could hop on a train for the weekend after we had taught our classes for the day on Friday.
Yeah.
And the next, we'd hop on an overnight train, and the next day we'd be in a big city like Beijing or Shanghai or something
Wow.
like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can remember prices, Nick, but just thinking about like an overnight sleeper train where you actually have a little bed. There are 3 bunks high on the bed, as well as like a hostel we stayed at in Beijing, which was very safe and clean. And then getting around Beijing via subway and things like that. And then eating, obviously. Any idea of like costs there? And just if you remember, I know this was 10 years ago, but
Yeah, I was back. We went back in 2018, though. So
Okay.
I've been back recently. And I think to go from one city to another on a train, a bullet train, might have been, what do you think, Mengwan? 400, 500?
Around that much.
Which is still less than $100. And it seems to me like it'd be hard to get a plane ticket in the U.S. for under 100.
yeah, but that's also
Yeah.
a bullet train. And
Yeah.
they do have slow moving trains, which was all I did when I was there. Those are much cheaper. I want to
Or
say,
like 150 or $200.
yeah, so
RMB.
closer to $15 to $20 for a ticket. And then
Yeah.
we, in our hostels in Beijing, we'd stay in the 10-person room and they were quite
Might have been
inexpensive.
50 a night or something.
50.
It's under $10.
Yeah, Chinese dollars. So yeah.
Wait, a 10-person per room hotel? What
Well,
is that
no,
like?
these are
Gotcha, I
hostels.
gotcha.
I might have 5 bunk beds.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you have different
Like,
options.
okay,
You
I
can
never-
pay.
with a
The
Yeah,
cheapest
okay,
was 5
hostel.
bunk beds.
smelly Italian man.
And then you can pay a little bit more and have just 2 bunk beds, so 4 people
Sure.
total. Or
Okay.
you could pay the most and have your own private room within the hostel.
Okay.
But shared bathrooms. Mhm,
Cool.
For
Yeah.
for the floor.
Mhm.
And very clean, very nice. I remember the workers of the hostel got to stay there for free if they cleaned every day. So that was interesting. So,
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah. So,
And you actually do tend to meet a lot of cool people from other countries. It's,
Mhm.
it's pretty fun to
Mhm.
like
That's
Get in
cool.
there and
Yeah,
talk
that's
to people.
interesting.
yeah, I love traveling. We would take advantage. They would have these random holidays that we didn't really know about, like Tomb Sweeping Day. And I'm not sure, Mangwan, if you can remember any other holiday.
Boat Festival.
And
Sounds
so it's, we have Monday off work. Let's do a long weekend and go to a different city.
Cool. So it seems like it's pretty easy to get to different locations within China. How is it traveling in the big cities? Is it pretty easy or is it pretty complicated? Would you recommend renting a car or?
I think it's very easy to travel in China. It has a really good train system, and now, especially the bullet train system, it's super fast and very comfortable. And then the bus system, it's really widely used.
Okay.
And then the taxi, and now they have something like Uber or Lyft, so you can also rent your own taxi, and it's very convenient, and we don't usually rent a car. It's hard to drive in China. Actually, it's more convenient to just hop on a taxi or bus if you want to take the adventure. I would say it's much easier to travel.
Oh, yeah. Public transportation is super easy. There's buses everywhere, tons of subways,
Love that.
and it's the way to go for sure.
Is it true? Because I've always heard that communist countries or post-communist countries have amazing subway systems. Does that kind of ring true for China?
Yeah, it was so beautiful. It made Chicago and New York just like total dungeons. Like everything was just so, I remember just like very bright white, flawless tile, immaculate, very well lit. And then unlike US subways where you can push someone on the tracks before the train's coming, they had beautiful sliding glass automated doors
Wow.
that keep everyone
Okay.
from going on the track. So in case it gets super crowded, no one can fall in. And then when the subway comes, the doors line up with the openings of the glass doors and they all open together, allowing
Wow.
you to get on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
So
cool.
it's incredible.
They're also pretty new subways too. Like the one in my wife's hometown, it wasn't there when we lived there,
Right.
but now when we go back, they do have a subway.
Sure.
Man.
And they also have Subway.
Eat fresh.
Oh, I forgot to get them as a sponsor. Darn it.
Next time.
Well, let's go over our lows.
yeah, let's talk about it.
Okay, so for me, this wasn't a low. For many, it was. As a foreigner in a more rural town, we talked about people may take pictures of you because you look different and maybe they haven't seen you before. So for me, while I loved it, I know that there were some strong introverts, other American teachers who were strong introverts in our university who
Yeah.
really loathed and were almost fearful of getting their picture taken by someone who wasn't asking. So I suppose a
Interesting.
low could be, if you're not like me and you don't like this, then
Yeah.
potentially you might be upset when someone takes your picture without asking.
Sure. So do they get in your face a little bit?
No.
Or
Super polite about it,
Okay.
and they do it very nonchalantly, like just
Okay.
trying to do
Yeah,
it. But
just-
sometimes you can tell if someone's taking your
Okay.
picture, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Second was grocery shopping. Specifically when I was new, Chinese has an extremely difficult writing system. It's not an alphabet. It's not phonetic.
Sure.
In Chinese, the writing makes up like a symbol or a picture. And either you know it or you don't. There's no sounding it out like in English. I'll just sound it out. No, you can't do that. You know it or you don't. Now, some things, there are some foundations of the characters that carry over. For example, there's a little character for water. You will see that, I believe, Mengwan, you can fact check me here, but like in the symbol for ice or maybe ocean or maybe rain or something like that. You will see that same character in there.
It's in the symbol for fruit as well.
Oh, okay, nice. But anyways, in English, we have, 26 letters?
Yeah.
And how many characters in Chinese are there? Do you have an idea? I heard once there was over 10,000, but only once like the main 3,000, you can read most newspapers. Does that ring true to either of you?
I think I remember a Chinese teacher telling me a high school graduate knows about 6,000.
Okay. So yeah,
Wow.
instead of 26
Oh, man.
letters, it's 6,000 pictures.
Okay.
Each one pretty different from the other, particularly to a Westerner's
Yeah.
mind. So when you go to the grocery store and you're looking for a window cleaner
Yeah.
and you get, this happened to me. I was wanting to like get my mirror
Sure.
in the bathroom was filthy and I just
Yeah.
wanted like the Windex. You know?
Yeah.
Like when I went to that aisle of the giant grocery store, there were over 100 bottles of different sprays
You
and I
didn't
just
know
have
which
no idea. And I also don't know how to ask it.
Yeah.
So one cool thing about our school is they'd pair you up with, I don't, they call them, do you remember, Nick? Not a conversation partner, but like a little brother, little sister, like student who could help you go get your phone set up, help you go shopping, things like that.
Yeah, that was, so you usually, when we got there, somebody would, take you around. And
Yeah. But if you don't want to be dependent on someone, you want to go out, you lose your independence. And I think that's what this low is really getting at. You lose the independence you have here in the States that you can go out and buy window cleaner without needing a college student to help you.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So with all those letters and stuff, can you go your entire life with maybe seeing a character that you've never seen before and not understand what it is?
Yeah, I still see some characters I
Wow,
don't know.
that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes, especially in people's names, sometimes I
Okay.
think some parents they want to be creative and make their children's names different. So they sometimes choose like difficult words. Sometimes I don't know how to say it.
Wow, that's cool.
And our last low is the smog in the air. China,
Okay.
being a developing country, has a lot of businesses and factories
Yeah.
that are making all that cheddar. And so therefore you're going to have a lot of smog in the air. So as like a runner, I remember going out for a jog. I remember running what felt like in my body was 3 to 5 miles, but distance wise, I had only gone 1 mile because it was harder to breathe with that in the air. So I know further away from the cities you get, clearer air, blue skies, but towards the factories and in cities, you're definitely going to have more smog. And that's just, there's no way to do it with that many people and that many factories. I just don't know how you would do without it.
Is it like that in every major city in China, or is it reserved to the Beijings, to the Shanghais, or can you pretty much expect that in every major city?
I think it's pretty serious in Beijing, but it's much better in Shanghai.
Okay.
And so those are the big cities. The city I'm from, it's like a second level city in China. So
Okay.
and it's pretty bad there too. So I would think the more populated those cities are, the worse.
Okay.
And it also depends on locations. I think Beijing, it's pretty close to the north. I think there are geographical reasons too.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Nice.
So do they have, I feel like I read somewhere that on occasion you might have bad smog warning days or something like that. Is that?
Yeah, now they have like apps that you can
Okay.
track the weather conditions, and they will tell you how bad the pollution is and give recommendations whether to wear a mask or stay inside, or is it good enough for you to go outside to exercise. Yeah, there's apps like that.
Wow. Okay.
Tips from the travel agents.
Brian, do you recommend that someone going to China, do you recommend that they learn Mandarin in advance or try to learn some things about Mandarin?
Oh yeah, yeah. Make an attempt to learn anything before you go. There's so much more to learn when you get there. Anything you can get in advance is going to help you so much. And I think my biggest tip, learn hello, learn goodbye, learn thank you. That's great. But just try to learn the numbers, because once you learn 1 through 10, it is very easy to learn all the way up to 100. It's not like French or English where there's weird stuff like 30 and 40 and all that stuff. It's very simple. So learn to count 1 through 100, and that is going to help you so much in all things, purchasing things, finding out just really anything numerical.
Okay. All right. But what about the best ways to learn the language?
So I found the best way to learn a language is getting away from people who speak your native language. So, for example, at the school that me, Nick, and Mengwan worked at, we found that there were a lot of other foreign teachers there. And what was easy to do was just hang out. For me, at least, I would hang out with other Americans and speak English all day. And I'm not learning Chinese if I'm doing that. So the best way to learn Chinese is, it was pretty cool. At our school, they gave free Mandarin classes to the foreign teachers. So I took advantage of that because my workload was pretty light. I only worked like 20 hours a week teaching myself. So after a Mandarin class in the morning, I would go out to the city and this is also my personality, I would just find someone and just stop them, and they were willing to talk to me. It goes back to the celebrity one. And I would just practice like that one word I had learned and remembered from class.
Yeah.
And I would just do it over and over, maybe 5 people a day. So it just became cemented in my brain, right? So that's number one, get away from Americans when you're in China. And then the second tip is talking to young Chinese children or elderly Chinese people, because there's a better chance they don't speak English.
Okay.
And when they can't, you're forced to learn.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm with one of my students who does, even if their English isn't great, they're going to try to meet me halfway and give me English words. And you think, oh, that's probably helpful. They can speak some English, right? It's not helpful when trying to learn a foreign language. It's truly when you're immersed in something, it's so much better. So for example, I spent 3 years in high school studying Spanish, and I know nothing now. I have nothing to prove except like cerveza and margarita and taco and chalupa. Yet being for 10 months immersed in China, my brother and I can actually have a conversation without you knowing what we're talking about. And that's pretty cool and pretty exciting that we can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. Okay.
All right, for our next tip, in regards to speaking with elderly Chinese people, maybe you're going to work on your Mandarin or something. Let's talk about respect for elderly people. So, Mengwan, anything you can touch on in regards to Chinese culture and that respect?
Yeah, sure. In Chinese society, in Chinese culture, people are expected to treat elderly people well and respect them. And it's also part of Chinese culture for children to take very good care of their parents when they get older. It's really a very big part of Chinese culture, actually. And if somebody is not kind to elderly people, that's actually like a social taboo. It's not acceptable.
Interesting. Okay. That's cool.
So for the next tip, I just recommend travel as much as possible while you're over there. So one thing I've learned about being a travel agent is usually the plane ticket to the Asian continent or African continent, it's the most expensive thing.
Yeah.
Then once you're there, it's quite inexpensive, right?
Sure.
Like I had clients who went to Indonesia. They got a week at a beautiful oceanfront villa with chefs who came in every day and made them breakfast, lunch, dinner, gave them massages, gave them surf lessons. And the whole week was like $600 for all their meals and like massages and all that stuff. It's just insane. But the flights to get over to Indonesia were somewhere between $1,700 and $2,000 per person from like Cleveland, which is just ridiculous.
Right.
Just talking to a guy in Kenya who had $400. He had a week stay there were elephants in the backyard and like a whole safari, right? Like in a beautiful villa in Kenya with food and all that. But the flights to get over there, I've been seeing recently, $1,500 to $1,800 per day. So same thing that goes for China. Like the ticket's probably going to be the most expensive thing. So while you're over there, it'll never be as easy to travel around China than when you're living there. So what I recommend, I think, Nick, you'd recommend the same to anyone living in China. Take advantage of any travel trip you get. Take off work, like just go, do all the big cities. We never went out west. We did most of our trips around eastern China, which is where the majority of the population lives, all on the coastline. It's where all the big cities are and things like that. So I wish I would have gone to more places. We're very lucky that we got to travel quite a bit. You even more so than I, because you did Southeast Asia.
Yeah, definitely. It's all very affordable once you're there, and it's real easy. Especially in America, if you want to go to Chicago or something, you might drive your car and you have to stay. But you could sleep the whole train right there.
Yeah.
And then you're ready to go once you get in. So it's not like this thing where, I need to be responsible because I have to drive home tomorrow. Just stay out all night and then sleep the whole train ride back.
Sure. Is there anything that comes to mind that you guys think you got to do this if you go to China? You got to see this, got to go to this place?
Yeah, the Great Wall of China is truly, I think it's one of the 7 wonders of the world.
I believe it is, yeah.
And what's the length of the Great Wall of China? 13,000 miles. Let me say
Wow.
that again. The length of the Great Wall of China is over 13,000 miles. So you're only going to see a small section of it, and you're going to be winded after 10 minutes. But
Yeah.
it's that cool, and some of these views are insane.
It really is fantastic when you're
Yeah.
up there and you look one direction and then turn around and look the other direction.
Yeah.
You just see the wall going forever both ways.
Man,
And quick tip while we're on the Great Wall, they're probably, majority of the tours are going to take you to the very touristy areas.
yeah.
For example, Batalong, I want to say that's one of the more touristy areas. There's like a slide for the kids, and it's just going to be shoulder to shoulder, jam packed with people. But there are other areas. One starts with a G, and I'm drawing a blank on it. But there are plenty of areas of the Great Wall where your drivers and tour guides can take you, and you may not see another soul in sight for miles. And that's a really cool experience.
Sure. It's around Beijing, right? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it north?
Suburb north of Beijing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. And can you get there, take a private car, hop on a tour type thing? Or?
You would say to the driver, Chu Chong Chung.
All right.
Listen to the beginning of the episode for perfect pronunciation.
I think you would probably want to schedule a car in advance. Maybe ask your hotel to help you schedule. That's probably the best way to do it. You might pay somebody for the whole day. They'll take you out and then take you back.
Right.
Sure.
Stop
sure.
for lunch. Yeah, all that stuff.
Do you have to pay to actually get in and see the Great Wall, or is it free and you just gotta,
You have to pay to get in. It's considered as a tourist attraction.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But nothing's too pricey.
Okay.
I think was it maybe around 100 kwai a person
Maybe so.
Yeah. to get in.
Yeah. I think the bigger cost is going to be renting the guide for the day.
Yes.
Sure.
Like a national park here in the U.S., the bigger cost is the guide, and then there's a nominal fee to get in the national park. It's
Right,
similar to that.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we spend 1,000 kwai to rent a guy and a car a day.
And it's about
Nice.
1 to 6, I want to say, conversion. So what's that, $160? Yeah.
Not bad.
Okay. Nick, tell us about bullet train versus slow moving train. What do you suggest?
I think if you can, it's usually a little bit more money. It might be even sometimes twice as much money to take the bullet train. And so you might think, well, I want to save a little bit of money and I'll take this slow train, but you spend the whole day on it.
Yeah, it's a lie. Don't fall for
Not
it.
that comfortable. Yeah, one thing you could do is they do have some sleeper trains where you can get one with a little bed. And do you remember, Brian, once you and I were on one of those? I think it was, I can't remember where we were going, but you and I were, it was like 3, there's a little area and it has 3 bunk beds
Triple
on each
bunk
side.
bed, sure.
And so we were in there with a family of 4 and we just had a blast talking to them.
It was great.
Yeah. So like in some ways that is cool taking the sleeper train.
Oh, yeah.
It'll give you a great experience. Got to use your suitcase as a pillow.
Yeah, you do. And it's the train would leave at 9 or 10 p.m. and then you wake up and you're in a new city and you had a good night's sleep.
That's cool. Yeah. It's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember this one time visiting Wuhan with a Japanese friend, and she purchased the train tickets for us to go from Wuhan to Xi'an, which is a 2-hour bullet train, but she bought the slow train, which was 12 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And we had upright seats that were on hard plastic. So 12 hours sitting upright, going. I remember asking the conductor, "Oh, when do we arrive?" Thinking he was going to say another hour. And then the time he gave me, I had him repeat it twice because my Chinese was pretty bad. But also I was like, "Oh, I think he's saying it's 11 more hours." And it was awful.
Probably saved a lot of money though.
Yeah.
Did you think about jumping off the plane or the train?
The train. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Or just sleeping on the floor or something. I don't know.
All right. Listen, there's a few things to keep in mind when you go to China. And specifically, there are things that you don't want to talk about. It can land you into legal trouble there. So make sure that you do not bring up the following things. Do not bring up Taiwan. Do not bring up Tibet. And do not bring up Tiananmen Square and what happened there. Other than that, enjoy your time in China.
Nice. Let's talk about the water. That's going to be a big question. So, Mengwan, what are your thoughts on the drinking water and what you would say to someone visiting who is concerned about this?
Sure. So the water is not suitable to drink directly from the tap. Like in my family, we always boil the water and then drink. Brushing teeth is okay for me. I don't know, how about you guys? Did you ever use purified water to brush teeth?
So I remember, Mengwan, like when I first arrived in China, a lot of the other foreign teachers were using bottled water to brush their teeth. And I thought, wow, we're going to be here for a year. And are you really going to use bottled water every time you brush your teeth? Because I'm like a 2 to 3 a day guy for brushing teeth. And also like rinsing your mouth out and stuff, having a water bottle nearby, it just seems wildly inconvenient.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I remember my brother Nick was like, "Brian, you're going to get sick on the water eventually. So do it now before the school semester starts and you have some freedom, get the sickness out of the way. And then you develop that iron stomach that can withstand it." And so I took his advice. First night I was there, I just go into town brushing my teeth and rinsing my mouth out with the water. I take showers, let the water just go in my mouth and drool out. And I think it was around week number 2, the sickness started, and it was the worst sickness of my life. I was keeled over on the cold bathroom floor using the toilet out of both ends. I'll just say back and forth, making the quick turnaround to use the other end. And it was so bad. I remember, Nick, do you remember going to get Gatorade for me?
Yeah, but people in China are so nice because I got to the grocery store before it opened and I just knocked on the door and said, "My brother's really sick. Can I come in and buy Gatorade?" And they went for it. They just let me in an hour early to buy.
That's nice. Yeah.
Nice. So there's one important thing about Chinese culture is in regards to compliments. This is really important you hear this. So, Nick, can you tell us a bit about compliments?
Yeah, China is, I guess you could say it's a very humble culture. And so when somebody says, "Oh, you did great," or you look cool,
Your English
you look very
is
pretty
great.
today. Your Chinese is so good.
Yeah, sorry. Chinese.
You shouldn't say thank you. You should say something like, "No, it's not that good." Or in Chinese, you would say "na li." And some Chinese people are really extreme about this. Like you might tell somebody, "Oh, your wife is so pretty," and his response would be like, "No, she's not that good." And I wouldn't go that far. I would never do that. But like with other things, or even if somebody would ask me, "Nick, can you speak Chinese?" I'll answer it in a way where I say I can't speak Chinese. But by the way I answer that, they can tell that I speak a little bit. So, it's just a way where you try not to make yourself look good.
Yeah.
But you also kind of tell them,
and so they say, "Wow, Nick, your Chinese is so good." And you say, "No, your Chinese is so good."
Or one thing I would always like to say is iban zai guojia disan, which means it's okay. I'm third best in the country. That always got a laugh out of people.
And we need to talk about toilet paper. I don't want you to run into a situation where you're not ready for this. So, Mengwan, tell us about toilet paper in China.
Sure. Yes, it's an important thing. I would recommend once you get to China, they sell this little packets of tissue paper, and you can just stick it in the pocket. And when you go to the bathroom, they usually don't have toilet paper there, so that would come in handy. And also, they have a squatty potty in a lot of public places. I think in the hotels they will all have the regular toilet, but outside in the restaurants or if you go to a tourist attraction, it's very likely it's going to be squatty potty without any toilet paper. So that's important to bring.
Yeah, I remember you will develop strong calves living in China. You get into that like catcher stance. Great. And then back to the toilet paper. It was just so funny getting in the mindset whenever I left my apartment. Phone, wallet, keys, toilet paper.
Man, wow. Okay, that's cool.
It's safety and other info with standby items. Here we go.
First standby item is the culture. Wow, is it different? My brother and I made all these mistakes while we were there, not trying to offend people, but accidentally offending people. So listen to our mistakes and check out these stories. So first thing I'm going to tell you has to do with opening gifts. In China, it is extremely rude to open a gift that someone gives you in front of them. You wouldn't do that. Maybe like if a mother and a daughter were exchanging gifts in their apartment. Okay, that's one thing. But we're talking about like a friend of yours or an acquaintance who gives you a gift that's wrapped. You wouldn't open it in front of them. And that might be because maybe your reaction would give it away that you don't actually like the gift or something. I just remember the last day I was in China, I became good friends with the local tea guy who we bought tea from every day, and he gave me a gift, and I just ripped it open, and he was looking at me like, what? And I was always shocked when people weren't opening my gifts I gave them. I'm like, open it. Come on, I got you the gift. In reality, yeah, it's opposite of here.
Wow.
Next, don't give someone a clock as a gift. Nick, tell us why.
I think when you give someone a clock as the gift, that's telling them, I am counting down the time until you're dead.
Yep. And then hit them with the green hat. Why should you never give someone a green hat or wear a green hat?
So we have in America, there's Paul Bunyan or some kind of folklore. But in China, there's this story where this woman, she's unhappily married to a businessman who's always going away on business. And she has a boyfriend. And so whenever he leaves on a business trip, she tells him, oh, wear that green hat. So he walks out the house with the green hat on, and then her boyfriend knows it's safe to come over. So if you wear a green hat, people will make fun of you.
We're just going to keep going rapid fire so you don't make a fool of yourself. If you see anything or hear something that someone referring to a yellow movie, that's a porno. Next, don't be like me, and the moment you open up your chopsticks at a restaurant, start using them as drumsticks all over your plate. It's not like you're not deeply offending the culture. It's just stupid, and you look like an idiot. And so similarly, you really wouldn't do that here. So definitely don't do it over there. And then, Mengwan, tell us, when you are serving a chicken to someone, how do you place the chicken on the table of a family sitting in a circle?
Yeah, sure. That chicken hat has to point to the person who's the most important one in that group.
Yeah.
Or same with the fish.
Yeah.
Like the fish mouth.
Okay.
It's in China, a lot of dishes are like a whole fish with a fish head.
Yeah.
So it points to the most important person. And that person usually sits across from the door.
Ah.
Yeah, like he or she would face the door.
Is it usually an elderly person, the oldest person there?
Yes, or if it's like a company get together, it's gonna be the boss.
Sure.
There. Mm-hmm.
I remember the strangest thing I ate in China was a fish eye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked to eat them when I was a little girl.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there you go. Nick, was there anything weird you ate in China?
Nothing too crazy, just the
feet?
normal stuff.
You did a lot of duck street food.
Yeah, I loved eating a little duck sandwich that you get out of the
Ooh,
street.
sounds good.
That's something. Street food is something your stomach's gonna have to get used to quick if you want to keep doing it. It's gonna hit you
it'll make
hard the first
it'll
time.
Feel a little rough the first
Yeah.
time, but well worth it.
Next cultural tip is there's really no splitting the bill. I guess if I went out with my brother, he and I might split the bill, or like another American, we'd split the bill. But if you're going out with a Chinese person or Chinese family, Mengwan can tell stories of her family like fighting to pay the bill.
Yes. Yeah, people, I think it's just trying to be polite, maybe. I just always try to pay the bill. I remember when my parents came to visit Nick, and I think it was before we got married. It was during Christmas. I think
Christmas Eve. I
Yeah, we
think.
went out with your parents and your siblings, and you all paid by your split a bill. And my dad was so shocked.
Yeah.
It-
We all start pulling out cash and putting on the
Yeah,
table. It's just like, everyone's dishing out cash. Really strange for your dad.
Super.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it.
Never wear your shoes inside someone's house or apartment. Definitely you take it out before walking in. Take them off before walking in. Nick, tell us about red pens and what to be careful for there.
Yeah, you don't want to write people's name in a red pen. It's kind of in the culture, you would write the name of someone who's passed away in red ink. So you
A lot of people in China are superstitious. So there's some superstition in the culture. So you'll see things like above businesses and doors, like red pictures on the sides and above the door. That's just for, I don't know, like a blessing or good fortune for the home and things like that. And with that superstitious culture, just like here in America, how we're hesitant of the number 13, there it's the number 4, because 4 is S. You want to say the right tone?
四
And how do you say death?
死
Yeah, exactly. So they're close. So
Yeah.
4 sounds like death. And so I remember when going to pick out a cell phone with my my Chinese student who was there to help me. When going, he said, do you want to pay the standard fee and they give you a cell phone number, or do you want to pay extra to make sure there are no 4s in it? And I was like, are you joking? He said, no, like you can pay extra just to have a minimal amount of 4s, like 1 or 2 4s in your phone number, or you can pay even extra to have no 4s in your phone number. I said, oh, load me up with 4s. Like, I'll take all 4s. That's fine. Just give me the cheapest one. It's kind of crazy.
Man, that's cool. That's interesting. If you're a religious person, churches aren't necessarily outlawed, but they are regulated by the government. So keep that in mind if you're a religious person and you're looking for a church in China.
Next, people, men in particular, will clear their throat out, and it's for health reasons. It sounds like they're about to hawk a loogie, and they'll do it in airplanes, on buses, and restaurants, and especially in a restaurant. It'll really catch you off guard when you hear someone in the table next to you really just like they're ready to really hawk a loogie loud. When they do that, just don't be shocked. It's for health purposes.
What are those health purposes?
I
Do we
have
know?
no idea. Yeah.
I think a lot of Chinese men are heavy smokers, so
Okay.
sometimes they couldn't really help.
Just a lot of
Have
phlegm.
to let it
kinda-
out. Yeah, inflammation in the lungs.
Okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Mengwan, tell us more about smoking and smoking culture in China.
Sure, it's very prevalent, and people are allowed to smoke indoor, which I'm not a big fan of that. I really don't like a lot of smoke in the house. I remember there was one time I took Nick to visit my teacher from college, and then Nick was having a super bad cold, and that teacher was smoking in the restaurant, not only making the whole room very smoky, but also he was like blowing smoke directly onto Nick. But I have to respect elderly people, so
Yeah.
I didn't say anything, and yeah.
So speaking of going out to a meal with maybe a Chinese person or like one of your Chinese students, if you're a teacher over there, and they take you out to lunch or dinner, my best tip for you is be specific about what you like to eat and don't like. Because I'll tell you, when the server comes and your Chinese student or the Chinese person starts speaking super quick, and maybe they're talking in their local dialect that you can't understand a word of it, and they're ordering all these dishes, maybe 6, 7, 8 dishes to be brought to your table, and there's always a lazy Susan in the middle of the table, and they just keep it spinning, so you're eating all this food, right? And then you come and you realize, wow, of these 7 dishes, 6 of them I'm not going to touch. That's a very awkward lunch. It would have been better if you just said, hey, I don't eat this and this. I do like this and this.
Well, hey, that's definitely something to keep in mind. Yeah, for
or
sure.
if you have some restriction, like you couldn't eat gluten or you don't eat beef or something, you should probably say that up front.
You're vegetarian or... Yeah. Nick, tell us about chou tofu.
Yeah, they have a stinky tofu in China, and you can especially smell this on the street food. It is just a really foul-smelling tofu, and I never tried it. I guess some people think it tastes all right, but it's hard to get past the smell.
I think it tastes really good. I really liked eating them.
Yeah, it's like the first thing you smell when you're walking up to Food Street. Oh, yeah. Next, Japan is close in proximity, and yet it is extremely different from China. And once you go to Japan and China, both of them, you will not get them confused. I have a lot of people here in America. I mean, oh yeah, is this Chinese or is this Japanese? And I think, oh, it's all one and the same to me. I think, are you serious? Like they're one and the same? No. Culturally, language-wise, a lot of the foods and just style of living very different. Try not to get them confused. Yeah, and then
No samurai in China.
Mengwan, can you talk? Oh, and real quick, they also don't bow in China.
Oh,
So yeah, don't
wow.
like go there thinking you should start bowing. You
Sure.
should not. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Mengwan, can you tell us about the 2-2-1 problem?
Yeah, that is the problem of the single child policy. A lot of Chinese families only have one child. So the one child is expected to take care of their parents. And the problem comes when a couple get married and then they have 4 elderly parents to take care of, and that could put a lot of burden on them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How about the grandparents as well?
Yes, if the grandparents are living.
And we're just, as a teacher, the amount of pressure on these students. I'm thinking, come on, you're a college student. Like, why are you taking this so seriously? Because these kids are staying up just in the wee hours of the night, just studying, just cramming this knowledge in. I'm like, oh my gosh. Then I realized, oh, the competition here is super huge because there's the most people in the world of any country, the highest populous country. So the competition is high, and you're expected to make enough money to take care of your parents who took out these maybe loans or paid their whole life savings to send you to a nice school. And you have to not only take care of them, you have to take care of your grandparents as well. 2-2-1 problem.
Gotcha. Okay.
Nick, can you tell us about just the kindness of the Chinese people?
They're super kind, very friendly people. If you just smile and learn a little bit of Chinese, they're going to be incredibly friendly, especially if you're out of the big cities. There's just a lot of great opportunities. I remember being at some restaurants and just talking to the people next to us, and then all of a sudden asking for the bill, and they say, "Oh, it's already been paid."
Wow.
And you don't even know, "Oh, when did they even pay it?" It's just wild like that.
Oh, wow. That's
People-
really,
To help you out,
yeah.
I met a guy in a hotel who was there with his daughter, and next thing I know, we were in a private car going to a cemetery to get a tour of this famous ancient cemetery. I remember like getting the tour, walking on the cemetery, thinking, "How did I get here?" It was just because of their kindness, right? Like they paid for everything, paid for lunch after. I was like, it was a great day.
Yeah.
Wow, I thought I was just in a hotel lobby. Last thing I remember.
In North Korea, they have that monkey that smokes, so you can throw it a cigarette.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Or like maybe an ape or a gorilla or something.
Yeah.
That guy rules.
What about weddings in China?
Oh, they're a blast. I think in the past, a lot of times, this is going back hundreds of years ago when they had arranged marriages. Sometimes it'd be the first time the husband and wife meet. So they'd keep it real light, real fun, a lot of games. And so even though now the couple has met long in advance and decided on their own to get married, there's still a lot of fun and games. And I remember when Mengwan and I got married, we had to do this kind of a silly game where they're like dangling an apple on a rope in front of us, and we're trying to bite it. And then after biting it a few times at the end, they'll pull it up, and then we had a kiss in front of everybody. So it's cute, silly. Not many people you're not going to see a lot of tears of joy at the wedding. It's more laughs and
Yeah.
fun. So if you get the chance to go, you should go. It's a blast.
That's cool.
Go to Xi'an and check out the Terracotta Warriors. It is an incredible sight. It's I don't even want to try to explain it. I'd rather you just go and experience it. But I'm sure you probably Googled these warriors and seen the history, how they uncovered them after they were buried for years. And
Pretty
they're all-
recently they were
Yeah.
discovered.
Do you have a year there?
I want to say in like the last 3 decades at least.
Okay. The other thing is definitely go see the Great Wall of China, which we mentioned, and that's in north of Beijing. And so while in Beijing, you can also do the Forbidden City and something heavens. Oh, anyone remember heaven something?
Heaven Temple. There's a Heaven Temple in Beijing.
Yeah, sorry. We call it Temple of Heaven. That's the way I remembered it. Yeah, Heaven Temple. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so go check out that as well in Beijing.
The Terracotta Army was discovered in 1974.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nick, tell us about getting homesick versus food homesick.
So I think it is getting a little more, now China's opened up for longer and longer. You're starting to see more and more things. But when I got there in 2010, it was just Chinese food. And I remember being on a bus and going to the big city and eating at McDonald's. And it was just the best McDonald's I ever had in my life because it had been so long. As good as Chinese food was, sometimes you just miss what's at home. And it's hard to find a lasagna there.
Yeah, Chinese food is delicious, but breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day, it was like would love a hamburger.
How's Chinese food, traditional Chinese food, different than American Chinese food?
I think there's a little less sugar in it.
Okay.
But
Yeah, you're not going to find General Tso's chicken there.
Okay.
You're not going to find orange chicken there.
What about Szechuan?
There's no fortune cookie.
Or
No
spring
fortune.
rolls.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Chinese dish?
Nick and I really love this spicy dry pot. It's like a mixed vegetable and meat. And it's a cuisine from Sichuan province.
Okay.
And that's our favorite.
Cool.
Yeah, you will find Kung Pao chicken and sweet and sour chicken. That is over there.
Okay.
Those are delicious. All right, the last standby item is about just the great size of China. And thinking you're going to go to China and do it all in a week is wildly unrealistic. It's somewhat similar to saying you're going to go to the United States and you're going to do New York, Miami, DC, Texas, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Seattle in a week, and you just can't, right?
Yeah.
And so similarly, you have to be strategic when you're going to China. What are the things you want to see? I'd say give your minimum 10 days, but the goal would be 2 to 3 weeks to really see quite a bit. Generally speaking, you're going to fly into Beijing or Shanghai, Beijing being towards the north, Shanghai being towards central east, or down south in a city called Guangzhou, which is in Shandong province where they
Shandong.
where they speak Cantonese.
not Guangdong.
Guangdong, sorry.
Guangdong.
Guangdong, they speak Cantonese, but you'll find that they speak Mandarin as well. So if you've been working on your Mandarin, you can still go to southern China and speak it there. But I say a popular trip I see in a lot of itineraries is the Beijing, Xi'an, Shanghai. And I think that is a great trip. You're missing a lot of other really great cities, but understanding you can't see everything, I think it is still a solid trip with a lot of great airlift into those Beijing to begin it and Shanghai to end it, right? And you're seeing so much. But if you have more time, definitely you want to head out a little bit more west to a city Chengdu. Which province is Chengdu in?
Sichuan.
Sichuan, which is Chengdu is the panda capital of the world.
Oh.
You can go see the panda sanctuary.
That's cool.
And how these pandas do not want to mate. They are trying everything they can to get these pandas to have sex so they can continue. And that's almost like a scientific experience in and of itself. So go check that out. But also it's got the spiciest food in all of China, Sichuan.
Ooh.
You get a hot pot and my face was melting by
Love it.
halfway
Ready to go.
through. Yeah. And then tell us a bit more about just traveling within China and around.
Yeah, if you want to try to go to the western part, southwestern, there's a city called Kunming. It's in Yunnan province. And there are also actually other cities in Kunming. It's a really neat place because it has the most minority groups in that area. So it's very ethnic. It has a lot of culture there, super beautiful scenery, and it has a really mild and consistently warm, pleasant weather. So it's it's very popular with foreigners too.
And it's not quite as crowded as other cities. So a little more nature there and beautiful scenery.
Cool.
That's cool.
I think my last standby item is just logistics of getting into China. So as a Westerner, as an American, or Canadian, we do need a Chinese visa to get into China. So a passport plus a visa. The visa process takes time. It's not something you do last minute. So really work it out. You have to ship it to the nearest Chinese embassy. And then it really can take quite a bit of time. And there's quite a few things you have to get in order to get that visa. So don't delay there. However, currently, for Hong Kong and Taiwan, as an American, you can fly in with just a U.S. passport. You do not need a Chinese visa to get in Hong Kong or Taiwan as an American citizen. I think that wraps up our episode. It was a blast talking about China. Nick and Mingwan, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you
you
for having
so
us.
much.
That wraps up another episode of the Travel Agents Podcast. Thanks for joining us.
We're the travel agents, that's the end of our show. Make sure to comment and subscribe.